Hello and welcome to UAT Time within the United Countries Special by First Ukraine. You can find us on the frequencies available on our website, firstuat.com. I'm Sergey Velichanskiy.
And I am Olivier Vedrine. UAT Time is dedicated to bring Ukraine and Europe closer to each other by introducing the Velichanskiy to the rest of the world.
Understanding the fact that there is less and less freedom in Russia for the people with independent point of view, it is no surprise that they come to Ukraine to continue their work.
Our guest today is Frolov, Free Russia Foundation.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and we would like to know your story. Maybe just a little bit of background.
The story. Well, for quite a while, I've been working in Russia in different human rights and pro-democracy initiatives, like the Civil Assistance Committee, GOLAS, or the Greenpeace. I've been working with my colleagues from the Civil Society Center, with civil activists, and with people who was supporting the different kind of initiatives. And at some point, you know, we all found out that our Russia just became something different. And pretty soon after the annexation of Crimea, I made my choice and I moved away. I've been studying at Masters for the Public Administration in the States for a couple of years. And then already there, I have met and have reunited with a couple of my colleagues, which I knew before in Moscow. And we decided that even if we left, it doesn't mean we cannot care about our country. So we have launched a foundation called Free Russia Foundation, which is the DC-based organization, mission to reunite the Russian diaspora and re-engage all these very clever, very energized people who have moved because of the repressions or because of the atmosphere of hatred in current Russia abroad, so they can all work for the better Russia and for European choice of Russia.
Okay.
So basically it is.
But reuniting Russian diaspora, upon which foundation? Because I can, you know, having been to a lot of, you know, Western countries, I've seen that there are such a huge variety of all the people that come. And most of them, they want to be in the West, but they still you know, are well, their roots and their minds are in the old Soviet Union.
Well, that's very different. Well, that's a very strange thing because I mean, Russian diaspora is not like Ukrainian. Those people have never been that united, like, you know, like a community or diaspora. There are like a huge percentage of people who usually moves to the Europe or to the States just to, you know, be happy there, just to start business, to work with some big company.
To upgrade their lifestyle.
Yeah, so there are like a huge mass of Russians working in the Bay Area for the high-tech companies, for example, or in Washington or in New York. And these people, many of them are actually, you know, identify themselves as Americans or as Europeans or as Frenches, you know. So, but the difference and the thing which happened just a few years ago is the supernova wave of Russian immigration of people who actually wanted to work for Russia, you know, who actually wanted to build their businesses in Russia and, you know, invest their human capacity in developing their country, but they has to move because of all these situations related to the Crimea, related to the political situation, related to, you know, all this increasing level of corruption and just simple inability of Russian state to provide any, you know, goods except for bread for the people, right?
Yeah.
So this is a very different case. These people are actually interested in that. So in our work, we are more motivated to work with like a newly immigrants. And this is just one thing, but another thing that those people sometimes are actually representing a very high class human capacity. So we do work in the expert area right now because there are like a huge amount of Russians who are, you know, the world-class experts in economy, in politics, in other areas. So the Russian diaspora abroad right now is pretty much able to build a huge platform for the reformation of the country and for, innovating our world in general.
Okay, okay.
But by the way, what do you think about, because in France we have a problem with the Russian diaspora, especially in France. A large part of the Russian diaspora from the white Russian, you know, they, I think 90% are supporting Putin now. And how you will face this old diaspora in your policy?
Well, I would say that another characteristic of this old, let's say, pro-Putin diaspora, which basically exists, this is true. I wouldn't say that it's like 90% or something, but they exist. But another characteristic of them is that they are not active. You know, people who support Putin, just like in Russia, it's not like people who are actively supporting something or actively supporting an idea. This is just people who are easy to be impacted by the propaganda and such things. For example, in France, there are another organization called Russo Liberté,
I know.
which is basically the community built by the opposition-minded Russians, just to support the democratic idea. And this is true as well. I mean, we all understand that the influence of RT, well, it's limited, but RT broadcasting in France, in Germany, and...
In France, Russie Liberty is Prokofiev, no? The person who in charge of.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I just don't want to make
But
confusion,
I know them and they are very active. I'm totally agree with you.
I want to come back a little bit, maybe 2.5 years ago. What were you doing at the moment when things started rapidly develop concerning Crimea, and your opinions and your thoughts, your feelings, and how did it happen? On your opinion, how what could have been done to avoid it, or there was no chance for people like you with the different point of view to influence?
Nobody knows that. That's the thing. When the Bolotna movement started in Russia, and when so many good people went to the streets and started, to develop civil initiatives back to 2011, 2012, we saw that, the power authorities wasn't really ready for us. We saw that there is such a big room for development, such a big room for influence on the state by the civic initiatives at that point. But when all this Crimea thing happened, I think many people was realizing that by these 2-3 years, the Kremlin was preparing themselves to make a big answer for such things. When Maidan started in the Ukraine, it was so many people in Russia who was supporting it so strongly. I'm not talking about only activists, but about the regular Russians who was saying, yes, the people going there to fight with corruption, to fight with Yanukovych. I mean, who the hell in the world will think that Yanukovych is kind of good president? Like, all the Russians, I mean, even Vladimir Putin was saying many times that the Ukraine is more corrupted than Russia. And why people would support such president? People wasn't understanding what's happening. When the first shoots in Maidan happened, I went to the embassy of Ukraine to put their flowers and to put the portraits of the people, and we just made a small announcement on Facebook with my friends, and we had like 100 people gathering there in 2 hours in Moscow. So this is that's a pretty big sign, and even policeman who was there for controlling was very kind with us, which never happens because people understand. But with all the situation in Crimea, the Kremlin used all the mechanisms to support their view on this point. When you start into burning fire, the fire goes everywhere. So even people who was kind of not interested in such politics started to engage because the fire starts with radicals, but then it have a very it goes wide. It goes wide.
And if we talk now about the situation in Russia, we received Ilya Ponomarov 2 times here, I think, 2 times. We received Olga Kornisova, Fedor Klimenko, and if I do a synthesis of that is, for me, and now in Russia, the only way to change Russia is when the elite will stop to support Putin, when they will lose a lot of money. What do you think about that? Do you think this economic situation, and you know that we are in June, we will talk about the sanction in Europe, in Brussels, and I hope we will continue sanction. I think we will. What do you think about the impact of the sanction, and what do you think about a scenario where this elite, economic elite, will be against Putin and maybe do some change in the government?
Well, actually, that's a very good question, because the Free Russia is going to present two reports this summer, one before the D-Day for European Union to prolong the sanctions, another one in September, I think. And these reports are about the impact of the sanctions on the Russian population and Russian business elites. And like, as what I saw and what I heard on the consultations with my colleagues, that, you know, and I totally support this position, that if you want to actually, you know, make some divide between elites, you should sanction not just for friends of Putin. Basically, of course, those people are mostly involved in corruption, shams and stuff, but, you know, there are 100, 200 people on Forbes list who are all getting money from the Kremlin, because it's impossible to be a billionaire in Russia right now without the ties to Kremlin. It's just impossible, and this is easy to understand. And you know, if the EU or the United States want to make actual impact on the divide inside the elites, they should impact on more representatives of the elites. You know, there are no normal man who will say that he wants to prolong sanctions against his nation, right? But those people are not representatives of Russian nation. Those people are the part of the Kremlin vertical of the power. They are the part of the system of corruption and the kleptocracy. And that's where the EU and United States should go, you know? That's where all these things
I
start.
think, you know, we must increase those types of sanctions against some people, some targets.
Exact people.
And you talked about the list on Forbes list. That's a good idea. Because if we increase the very global sanction, the people, they don't care about the people. You can increase the sanction and the people can suffer. The Kremlin will not care. And I think the target is to divide the elite. And as Ponomarev said, if tomorrow the elite will say, stop, we want to stop, to lose money like that, yes, a change will come. And I think, and I want a second question about that, now Putin is opening his National Guard, okay? That's like during the Third Reich with Adolf Hitler's personal SS or SA or something like that. And what do you think about that? Do you think this is maybe a kind of proof that he's losing the power?
Well, I think these actions are kind of logical and expectable. You know, well, when you're looking at a person like Vladimir Putin and the situation we have right now in Russia, this is so normal that at some point he will build a personal army to defend the regime, which the National Guard is, right? I would say that he's afraid. I would say that whatever they say and whatever they believe in, all this 88, 84, whatever number of percents, you know, they all know that there are a lot of decent Russians who don't like what's happening in the country, you know. And the only thing I should say when people talk to me and say, like, the National Guard is going to be launched in Russia, I would say, okay, it's going to be more criminal cases, it's going to be more injured people by police and tortured people, it's going to be more political immigrants and refugees in the United States and of course here in Ukraine, because this is a border country. And that's just where we're going right now. Yeah.
Yes, that's the way where we're going. And I want to ask...
Let's move because we can talk about pretty much it's clear what's happening in Russia, and unfortunately it's not clear where it's going to lead and when it's going to end, and I should correct myself, when it will change.
When it will. Yeah.
We're not yet sure, but the projects that the people like Ilya Ponomarev, Olga Konasova, and you are launching abroad is definitely adding a little more into the
This is a wave of
fire
resistance.
of change.
This is a wave of resistance.
So
that's
when was it? A couple of days ago, you presented in Kyiv Crisis Media Center, presented a project.
Yeah, well, it was actually the 4 hours ago, but
Today.
Not by the time this show
Oh.
comes on.
oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. That's all right. Hey.
Yeah, well, yes, we actually just launched a new initiative called emigrussia.org, which is basically the web portal which will work in 2 directions. The first direction is working with the Russians who are about to leave country, or with people who are already here in Ukraine because they has to immigrate because of political reasons, or because they was actually forced to immigrate because of politically motivated criminal case. There are a lot of those people here. We've been working with Russians in the US, and usually if someone is able to move so far, it means that person is kind of able to do a lot of things by himself. But here in Ukraine, we have like a mass of people who are just moving through the border, running from the regime, and they have no other way to go. So we are now going to provide the support for them. We're going to provide them instructions how to be legal in this situation, how to cooperate with Ukrainian authorities, how to submit requests for the permanence and for the citizenship or for the refugee status. And this is a very important thing for us right now, because from one side we see a huge social mission in that, because those people should not be left alone. And the situation between Russia and Ukraine is pretty much horrible right now, and people sometimes don't really see where is the difference between the state and between the people of Russia, and the environment for people who are moving might be not very welcome sometimes, especially from the authorities. But these people are the free-minded people, otherwise they would not be in such situation. They still can work back on their supporting their colleagues in Russia who are still staying and fighting there for their freedom. And they also can positively impact on the Ukrainian society, because there are quite a few cases of people who are opening the new initiatives in Ukraine in support of Ukrainian society, people opening businesses. They're active because the people who are moving, they're usually very passionate about what they're doing, right? Yeah. Another part of our project would be actually focused on the Ukrainian society, because we want to tell people the stories. We want to start the dialogue from this, because that's the easiest way to start a talk between each other, to show the actual story of actual people who was harassed by the state, who moved here and who started to live here just, back to back with you, who are now your neighbors and who are now either working for the future of Ukraine or Russia, or either actually having the problems with the Ukrainian migration authorities because they're not receiving the refugee status, because the migration services are easier working with the Russian police than with Russian human rights organizations.
Yeah, I'm noticing a lot of contradictions in a few things like this, because only recently I learned that the pension fund of Ukraine is collaborating with the pension fund in Crimea, and they take the papers from the pension fund of Crimea as a document, in spite of the fact that it completely presents a different picture than what the people bring. So to me, it's just a lot of issues like this. And I have heard about things like this, that a person from Russia wants to apply for a refugee, but the immigration's office is addressing the Immigration's Office and Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia,
yes,
regarding this person.
That was absolutely crazy case when the guy who applied for refugee status have received the answer that we cannot grant you the status because the Russia is a democracy which respects the rule of law. And it could not be such thing like political, political prosecution in Russia. And if you're showing us, the papers that you have been detained after the rallies on the streets, it means that you're a hooligan. And why should we actually give you citizenship or the status? And this is the actual official answer of the authorities here in Ukraine.
And how you will deal with that? You have some lawyers or some.
Hold on. Before we answer that, I want to draw your attention to We are on Facebook. So please find us on Facebook and let us know what you think, and give us suggestions of who you want to see on our show. Facebook.com/FirstUA channel and Facebook.com/UAT time.
And
So-
how you will face
Well, I mean, we still understand that we are Russian initiative in Ukraine,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
not going to be easy to work. It's not going to be easy to establish trust between us and the society, but we are already cooperating with several Ukrainian organizations. We are trying to be open to every initiative that's going to collaborate with us. We are talking to officials, we are talking to the immigration service and to the people. So, we actually we would be happy to, to cooperate with every side of this conflict, just to make this corridor maybe tight, but green. So it's always easier to play when you see the rules of the game, right? So we understand that it's going to be complicated to change the system or stop the machine, because not every part of Ukraine is reformed yet, and there are like a huge way to go. But for us right now, it's important just to see the rules of the game and to help people to follow them. So then people will get a status, and then the authorities will be fine with this and will trust those people. In fact, just like a half a year ago, it was about a year ago, the President Poroshenko and administration of the president was launching the law that will actually provide people from Russia who are keeping the pro-Ukrainian position and who are getting persecuted with this, the citizenship of Ukraine, like the procedure for them going to be way easier. But this law unfortunately just stopped in Rada. It get through the first reading, and then people just forget about that for some reason. And by this, I'm saying that we are not trying to invent something which we want, which we will, produce by ourselves. We are like Russians here, so we do understand that we are guests. But this is an initiative which was actually produced by the president. It passed the first reading in the parliament, so it kind of seems that it shouldn't be the big problem, right?
Yeah.
Indeed, there are like up to 1,000 people, foreigners, including Russians and Belarusians, who was fighting in the volunteer battalions of Ukrainian army in the Donbass. And those people are now without the documents.
I know that.
Yeah, and this is a huge social issue, because, this is actually people who was fighting for Ukraine.
But I worked on the law about that, to give a status to the foreigners who are fighting in Ukraine, in Donbass, against Russian aggression. I worked on this law. This law was voted and signed by the President Poroshenko in October. Yes, in October.
Well, not really. The law, which was actually signed, is kind of not that good, because the law says that, okay, you can get a Ukrainian citizenship if you're going to fight on a contract based on Ukrainian army for 3 years. And we should understand that there are quite a few people who was already fighting and who are now injured or lost like their legs or hands because of the fights. These people cannot fight 3 years more. And this is the big social issue.
Yes, it's a big problem of this law. The problem of document, the problem of the time. I know, but this law was voted, and this is the first step.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to. We have to continue lobbying about that. But this is the first step, and we work a lot to have this law.
Yeah, and that's why I do believe that we have a chances to work with this. The Ukraine is not Russia. The Ukraine is a country of possibilities and a country where the civil society can work.
I think that it takes to have a lot of open table discussions, open public discussions, with the invitation of a lot of social media, social organizations, so people know about this issue, because it's just that the typical person
and that's very
has
good.
no idea.
Very good, very good.
Problems like this. And we're not talking
project.
about those that fought in the battalions, and I'm talking about those that have never held an AK-47 or 100. But they deal with a totally different fight. They have their own warfare.
But I want a question. you have an office. You will have an office because okay, I am a Russian. I want to find you. Where I can find you?
Well, okay, how it will work for the next couple of months is that we do have a website with...
Yeah, did you hear about the word internet?
Yes,
Find us
but
on
you
the
know,
internet first. No,
I
no,
am playing my role.
no. Internet. Emig Russia, right?
Yes, emigrussia.org. Yeah, and basically every person can leave us a request for help there, and even if we don't have an office for the next couple of months, we're going to redirect this person for the Ukrainian NGO, which works with such things. There are quite a few nonprofits here which works with refugees, which works with legal support for the people, which can actually help. So we do understand that there are a lot of good people who already work in this country for a long time, and they work just fine.
Yeah.
Why not to just work with them?
Yeah.
So,
Will you have some sort of a security check on the people,
Well,
who they are and what they've done prior
this
to
is
coming?
Incredibly important question,
Yeah.
because like the most complicated part of this work is establishing a trust. A trust of the system in these people, a trust of the people, of Ukrainian people in the people who are moving from Russia. And here is a couple of things. If it's actually talking about the refugees and about people who are under the political persecution, there are quite a few respectful Russian nonprofits which are being respected in Ukraine and worldwide, which have enough data to support the cases which they see clearer, right? If we're talking about the people who are just moving to Ukraine because of the, because they see Russia in a different way, because they see the world in a different way, and because they cannot live in a society which supports the annexation of the part of another country, and especially a country like Ukraine, then for that people, I believe we can just help them to actually show Ukrainian society that they're good people, they're people who can build, but not to destroy, and who together can work for the better Russia, and who together can support the European choice of Ukraine.
Well, it's like this. I do know quite a few Ukrainians that say because of all the troubles that came from the north, they say, let us build our life by ourselves. We don't need any Russians to come. That's an extreme point of view, but it has some grounds, understandings, because we don't need to explain to these new people that Ukrainian language is a must. To be learned. It's the Ukrainian language is not a made-up language. And stuff like that. So it's going to be a challenge.
I know, and it's kind of easy to understand these people, because I mean, Russia being viewed sometimes as such a like a murder thing, like the huge great power from the north, which just trying to occupy everything. But the first thing, we should divide to what is a Kremlin and what's the Russians. And the second thing, that's very important to tell about, expectations here. I know that there are huge concern in Ukrainian society, and I heard it many times that even if we will let all these good Russians to Ukraine, they will not try to help Ukraine, but they will try to build a new Russia in Ukraine, and nobody wants it.
No.
I do understand this concern.
Let me give you a hint. Try to learn Ukrainian.
Well,
once you start at least a couple of first phrases, little by little, once you start addressing Ukrainians, the Ukrainians may be Russian speaking as well. That's not a problem. It's all right. But by learning, little by little, step by step, learning Ukrainian, you will show the respect, and people will appreciate that, and they will see your motives much better than the declarations.
Well, I do support this position, and in fact, I do understand Ukrainian very well. I cannot speak yet. I do it in a very funny way sometimes, but, another thing is that, we see here two groups of Russians who move in here. There are like a part of them who actually want to just integrate in society. They don't want to be back. They just want to say, leave us alone. We just want to live our life here. So for these people, if they will look for our support, we will help them with, with Ukrainian language courses, with Ukrainian history courses. And I know that's a big concern in society. When we've just presented our initiative, it was like a bunch of comments in the Facebook, like, all these Russians just should study what Ukraine is first. And I'm saying, of course, if people want to be citizenship, that's such a normal thing
Yeah.
to, you know, to study language, to study history. Even in Ukraine, where a lot of people Russian speaking, of course it's very important. And yeah, I do support. If you want to be citizenship, speak language. This is such a clear thing.
Sure.
But another thing is that there are a lot of refugees. And you know, the refugee should get a status, not because of ability of speaking language, but because Ukraine considers itself as a European country.
But let me-
and there are a big
let me
value
correct.
base for it.
I didn't say that it's a must for refugees,
Yeah.
but I just said that it will be better as far as communication of your motives to the people, the organizations and the public, and so this will, because you're not just one of the many refugees, you're here developing, social or political or
Well, I do
activities.
understand it, and indeed, like the team members from the Ukraine-based initiative team members are all kind of on the way of speaking language, and indeed
that's
we do have Ukrainians.
And to finish, I want
Yeah.
to say something to finish. I think this is very important that some Russian who will be tomorrow the political person in the power in Russia will be are in Ukraine now, because tomorrow when they will have the power in Russia, they will remember that Ukraine was there to help them.
Well, let's finish it. Let's leave it on this positive.
That's Europe also.
Thinking. All right. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks a lot for inviting.
It was United Country UAT time by First Ukraine. Our guest was Gregory Frolov, Free Russia Foundation.
Olivier Vedrine and Sergey Velichanskiy were working for you in the studio. Stay with us and we will show to you the real Ukraine.
Thank you for being with us. Have a good day and see you soon.
Thank you.